Hi, I'm Ankur, not a doctor yet. I started my PhD in part-time PhD in TU Dublin this year itself. This is my first year, and actually I joined TU Dublin last year as a research assistant in a Enterprise Ireland project that's working with several companies, Gaga Muller and Evercam, about construction, progress monitoring, and passive data capture. But this is something different. I'll stick with Ruben, as he said, in the construction phase of the project, not the design part, and specifically compliance challenges during the construction phase, the construction inspection that goes on. There is a BIM aspect to it as well, and that's why I'm presenting here. There is a lot of things that BIM can help in doing that. Starting this, I'll keep it short. This entire presentation is divided into four parts. So basically, it's a literature review that wants to check what is the opportunities and the challenges that are there in the physical compliance sphere of construction. So we'll go through the challenges and the failures, the legacy issues that are being there currently globally as well as in Ireland. Will categorize those issues based on three different parameters or dimensions. One is processes, one is behavior, and third part is technology. Then we'll identify those barriers in those three dimensions, and finally we'll show the way forward of the research trends that can happen in these particular spheres. Yeah, so I'll start by saying that construction compliance is, there are seven areas of construction compliance, and one of the key aspects after the design part is the construction that needs to be checked with the insurance, the building codes, the work regulations, the union requirements. There are several sorts of regulations that we need to adhere to, and there are severe flaws and severe incompetencies in adhering to those laws, regulations, and stuff. And so, when we talk about what are the flaws or what are the problems or challenges, it seems a lot of confusion is there. There are several problems or several challenges, but there is a need to categorize those challenges in as such that they are not potential someone's ability to not achieve that. Why are they not being able to achieve that? And so those categories or dimensions we have broken down into processes, behavior, and technology. And so the simple question to this presentation is: can the integration of digitalization, behavioral changes, and process improvement can provide a viable solution to non-compliance issues in the construction industry? This is some of the statistics that are there already present from a global perspective. Poor quality costs about 80% of the building projects, and a 50% increase in building costs. In UK itself, there was a 12 billion annually. It can be saved by effective quality management. In the US, this is I think so the last decade. The cost of rework was 6 to 12% of the total construction cost. From an Irish perspective, one of the key aspects is in the code of practice itself. It says that local authorities are only allowed to check 12 to 15% of new buildings that are carried out. So there is a abysmally low rate of inspection that is going on currently. One of the in 2015, the Dales Public Account Committee's a report, it showed that out of 300 vacant properties, 150 had fire hazards, and it would take around 100 million to rectify. And finally, the National Oversight and Draft Committees, this is the local authorities report. It showed that 23 local authorities had found that 90% of their inspected dwellings are non-compliant as per the standard regulations. Now, these are some of the statistics that looks bad. I'll go a bit back further. These are some of the legacy issues that have happened, the legacy failures of compliance, and the Grenfell Tower fire that has happened in 2012, 2017, sorry. This was one of the key, one of those moments in time wherein saw a number of changes. The Hackett report came out, the inquiries committee was put forward, and there are a number of regulations that have come in place for the better to prevent such accidents and such failures. These were complete inadequacies from the regulations and the compliance department. Also in Ireland, we have the Priory Hall scandal. There's a complete wastage of money, effort, and time, and making rooms without proper building regulations and safety standards. There were numerous defects and fire hazards and public property damage that could have happened. Thankfully, no one was injured or killed in this particular challenges. So, getting into the meat of the discussion is that how do we associate those three things into all those failures and challenges into three dimensions. So, firstly is the process, which is the regulatory framework with the guidelines that help compliance and the adoption of systems that makes those processes reach the people who actually have to use it on site, and not just be a regulatory framework for construction on an overall scale. Secondly is behavior. One of the key aspects that we saw while researching for this literature review and in the future is that there is absolute dearth of research in terms of how does compliance behavior change or influence construction workers and employees. So there is there is hardly any research studies done on how does behavior, human behavior, individual behavior, and it goes on to your organizational level and your hierarchical level behavior that influences or affects construction compliance. And thirdly and finally, this is where BIM comes in, the technology aspect. How does technology can change or how can it help provide better compliance for construction? So during the research, the methodology was divided into three parts. To look forward for the technology dimension, we looked at automation, artificial intelligence, robotic solutions, sensors, among other aspects of it, including machine learning, IoT, BIM, unified platform as a BIM. Field BIM technology was searched in this technology dimension. Secondly, there was process dimension. The process dimension, we looked into the regulations, the Building Control Act, the Code of Practice, and several other associated reports to find out what's the current status of the regulations in the Irish market. And finally, behavior dimension. Now, behavior dimension, as I said before, there is absolutely no research done in construction specifically. So we looked at other industries and how they deal with behavior and changes and what is their findings. So we can draw some parallels to our industry as well, that is construction. And so compliance behavior as a sociological theme was searched, and we found some evidence of behavioral influence to construction compliance. So now dividing all those issues into these three categories. When it comes to compliance processes, we know that before 2014, before BCAR, it was self-regulation, and there were grave problems with that. So 2014, we moved away and we brought in BCAR in Ireland. But still, there are certain weaknesses, certain areas that still needs improvement. Specifically, So specifically with the weekly defined processes at the very ground level of workers who are who are doing the compliance checks, who are working on the sites, there is very weak definition of the process and the sequence of activities that need to take place for them to comply to regulations. Secondly, there is lack of education and training for the inspectors as well as the people on site working. There are lack of training on site as well. Data collection systems and analysis systems, the inspector's experience matters a lot. One of the few researchers that have worked in the experience, it says that the inspector experience depends a lot on what he's inspecting and how he inspects it. If there was a study that showed inspectors of different ages of experience, they had different ways to check several aspects of construction. Second last, that's fragmentation of data. There's a lot of data that's available on site. People are collecting it, but it's not going up to the final product. It's not coming to where it should where compliance is met. So there is a lot of fragmentation of data on site. Who are collecting it? How they are collecting it? And finally, the regulatory regime in Ireland specifically, it's divided among a number of local authorities and number of regulatory bodies which need to come together and speak to each other. To have a more overall compliance improvement. Now, when I come to compliance behavior, I've been saying it a number of times. It's a very reviewed research area. But one of the few things that we found out was that incentivization is not a problem when it comes to compliance. When I say incentivization, what I mean is that if you put in something to promote compliance, or if you put restrictions or sanctions on workers that can restrict them to not be non-compliant. It doesn't work that way. In other industries, they have found out that compliance matters a lot in terms of what the person who is going to do compliance, what is his capacity and what is his willingness to be compliant to, whether it's he has the information available to him, whether he has the tools to do compliance, whether his peers or the people he is working with, whether they are of a compliant nature. What pressures does he have on the organization level, on a hierarchical level, what his boss is telling him. So there are a number of things that matters when it comes to non-compliance, not just a sanctioning problem that is there already in our regulation systems, where there are penalties that needs to be paid when it's non-compliant or non-compliance has been registered. So that is one of the key aspects of it. Secondly, the ethical climate theory. Again, this is an organizational attitude study which was done in the organizational attitude study. It was done in corporates and automobile companies across, and it's quite an old study, which said that ethical climate depends on the organizational behavior towards compliance. They categorized it into 5 different categories, as in independent, law and code, rules, instrumental, and carry, which basically means how your organization deals with compliance, whether they are carrying, as in the sense of whether they want you to do what's the best for the overall market, overall regulation bodies. So they put in extra effort to their employees and to the people who are working to be compliant. There is law and code. Obviously, when you have strict laws and codes put in place, your organizations are very adamant that you be compliant. It automatically gives them more compliant behavior to their employees. And the third thing, the third ethical climate attitude is the instrumental attitude, which shows that no matter what the workers are doing, until unless there are checks, regular checks, wherein your bosses, your hierarchical or superior staff goes in and checks and helps them improve the decision makings on site. It helps them being instrumental in checking what they are doing, whether that's right or wrong, and correcting them on the spot. That helps a lot in improving compliance. So these are some of the compliance behavior attitudes based on it. And finally, the technology part. This is where BIM comes in. Now, when we talk about technology from a compliance aspect, we have several different types of technologies, but on a grand scale, it does basic 4 different works: data collection, information retrieval, progress estimation, and visualization. Now, among all these 4 things, there have been several tests done. There are a few SMEs that are working on these areas. So there are robots with 360-degree views, which captures what actually goes on. Basic video calls for site inspection is something that is already there. So, and especially after the pandemic, it has been more used and widely used. But there isn't any technology aspect to it, except that somebody is holding a phone. But there are a lot of drawbacks to it, as in it depends on who is showing what and what is being seen on site. So there are no checks in that aspect. And there is integration of VR with GPS and IoT, which is currently being used in a number of US-based companies, and they're trying it out. I don't know whether it'll be a success or not, but then there are a lot of research studies that shows in having VR sets with your GPS and IoT sensors. And one of the basic examples of this, one of the basic advantages of this is that the VR has a BIM backbone. So the BIM plays a very integral part in putting the theoretical data as in what should be where, so that the person who is going around can go and check within it. How much time do I have?
No, you're okay.
Yeah, I'm just ending too. Secondly, this is the part wherein my analysis comes in. So the barriers of effective compliance, there are several barriers as we talked throughout it, and I try to categorize them in these 3 dimensions that we are working on. So how can it help, or what is being stopping it? So when I come to purely process, so incentives and sanctions, we need to work more on it to find out what's the best and the most easiest way to have more compliance with the least amount of sanctions or incentives put, because it has a bad add-on effect if we keep on sanctioning and incentives on a larger scale. Like, to what extent do we sanction or incentivize people or companies? Secondly, enforcement. Once the regulations and the frameworks are put in place, how do we enforce it? That's a very important part. It can be all written down, but until and unless it's enforced on sites, on each and every sites, it won't have a have any effect on it. Secondly, behavior. In behavior, again, ethics and corruptions are the two main things. How do we improve ethics of companies and individuals? And corruption. Corruption is something that is completely out of anyone's hand, because there is no logic to it, or there is no regular framework where we can analyze why corruption goes on. If it's happening, it's happening. So the only way to stop that is to find barriers and checks in order to how to curtail corruption. And from a technology point of view, there is time constraint. Obviously, manual inspection on sites on every aspect, it cannot happen. So technology can help improving our time management of it. Now, also what we are capturing, the data storage and the data accuracy, that can be improved by using technology. When it comes to two processes or two dimensions working it, so process and behavior can improve willingness. Willingness is basically the ability of the person to have the information and to have the tools to collect those data. And behavior and technology is capacity. Capacity is when you have those information, whether he has the willingness to, whether he has the ability to use that data or use that information in it. And finally, process and technology. When we have those processes in place, and when we have the technology is in order, so we can improve the education and the training of workers, staff members. We can have those data collection systems more profoundly put in place, and that it becomes a less of a resource constraint, as in when we have those data, we can analyze them and use them better to find provide compliance. Now, the final part is the research focus. These are some of the areas that I will be working on personally for my PhD research. It won't be all of them. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, done. So, in terms of process, we need to have more robust systems and protocols and workflows at the ground level. That's the most important part. It's not about the higher level stuff, but the people who are working it, they need to know what sequence of activities they need to follow to be compliant to all the regulations. We need to find out. There was already a clerk of works that was there in Ireland itself, but it has since then been phased out. But we need to look at the advantages and disadvantages of having independent third party compliance authorities, and how can they benefit, or how can compliance be benefited if we have those independent third party compliance authorities. And within processes, BIM and blockchain technology needs to come in play to have those details to enable those construction sites to perform better. From a behavior point of view, the future research area is to have some sort of a research in how behavior is affecting compliance. So among that, there has to be industry-wide code of ethics on ethical behavior and decision making. There has to be compliance training programs for our construction personnel in terms of compliance management systems, and also the research on the value-based, reward-based system to recognize whether it actually has any effect or not. And from a technology point of view, I've already talked about it. The BIM has to be a gateway or a checkpoint to store data, to capture data, and to help people on site to verify with compliance. We need to break down. We need to find research on how BIM can form as a platform wherein all the other technologies that can be used, that is VR, IoT, sensors, they can all have those data being presented into BIM. The interoperability of systems need to be worked on, and finally, machine learning tools and AI needs to come into play to have better solutions. That's it. I think so. That's my conclusion. So I've already discussed them. Yeah. Questions.